David Carr, NFL Network analyst, former NFL quarterback, and he joins us now. The Thursday night game, by the way, Cowboys without their head coach Mike McCarthy against the Saints on Fox, NFL Network, and Amazon Prime Video. And David, kind enough to join us. How important is that head coach when you make your decision to go play?
Oh, it's extremely important. I mean, you've seen when Lincoln left Oklahoma, how many top 5 recruits and just 5 stars said, "Yep, I'm going with him," or "I'm going to go somewhere else." It's vitally important. I'm a huge believer in coaching. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you're at. It could be high school football. You can give your kids an extreme advantage just by the X's and O's that you draw up. So, and it goes beyond that as well. It goes to the type of person that the guy is. I mean, there's so many different levels to it, but to think that, all these guys can just roll out there and it's just a matter of will and it's a matter of just being tougher than the other guy, that's crazy. You can do so much just with X's and O's and scheme. You can create offense for your quarterback. You can make it easy for your offensive line. You can make it also extremely difficult. So, yeah, I mean, coaching is everything.
Did USC recruit you?
No, and I'm really upset about it. You know what? I'm going to spring ball because Lincoln, he's not going to be able to keep me off that field. I have to see this thing in person. This is I told Willie McGinnis yesterday, we were doing our show. I said, "Look, man, I'm just tagging along. So you're just going to have to deal with it because I steal Lincoln's plays all the time, run for my high school football team. So you're definitely bringing me with you." But, SC didn't, Washington did. But then, ironically, we just lost our coach at Fresno State to Washington.
Yeah.
So, it happens everywhere.
Okay, what do you see? You say you steal plays when you coach with Lincoln Riley. What is separating him from a lot of these other coaches?
I was talking to Derek about this last night because we both almost just left football and talking about football to go coach based on just some of the numbers that we're hearing from this guy. But honestly, when you watch his scheme, it's not that difficult, but it's brilliant because he has subtle changes. And Tony Dungy was like this. Tony Dungy, when he was the coach for the Colts, on the surface, it looked like they were only playing cover 2 or cover 3 every snap. But in reality, there were subtle changes that they would make to the front, to the linebackers' responsibilities, to the corners' responsibilities. And it would match what you do and try to effectively take away what you're able to do from an offensive standpoint. And Lincoln's the same way. When you watch his offensive schemes, it looks like he only runs 5 plays, but those 5 plays have so many different tweaks and combinations. And the brilliance of what he does is he'll show you something and you'll say, "Oh, I got it." And there'll just be a double move off of it, or there'll be, another element to the play. So it's almost like, just another example, the Seattle Seahawks. They used to play a ton of cover 3, just single high, and everybody's like, "Oh, we know what they're doing," but no one could complete passes against them. No one could move the football. It's because the Seattle Seahawks knew exactly what they would get versus that coverage. They knew what you were going to try and do. So, Lincoln's brilliance is he's going to run stuff that looks exactly the same as everything you've seen on film. He's going to hit you with a double move. He's going to hit you with a screen out the backside. He's going to hit you with something that you just didn't expect. You're like, "Oh, well, that's just a one-off." Well, he does it all the time. So that's the brilliance of what he does is, on the surface, it's simple. It's easy to understand from an offensive standpoint, from a player that just wants to roll in. You're a top, you're a 5-star recruit, want to play receiver. You can easily go in and play in his system. It's not a big learning curve, but what he does is his subtle changes during the game are just brilliant.
Best coaching job right now: Oklahoma, Notre Dame, LSU, USC.
I mean, I don't know how. Just think about what SC used to do to those SEC teams. I think we forget that sometimes. When Pete was there, they would just go in and just bounce those guys. And I know we talk about the SEC a lot, and that's a fantastic conference. And those guys obviously have some of the best players, and you could make an entire football team. Hunter Renfrow, who believes that Clemson could actually win like 2 or 3 games every year in the NFL, and he's absolutely certain about it. So I get that, but I don't know how you could just take the kids in LA, and if you don't let them leave and you keep them at SC, you'll win the national championship every year. So I think that's a great job. I don't know why. I'm sure I'm not alone here, but why do you leave Notre Dame for LSU? If you're Brian Kelly, it's crazy to me. I don't understand that. Maybe I grew up in a different era where Notre Dame was the job that you would want to have forever. But I feel like he had a pretty good gig up there. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, LSU, from what I'm told, reached out to Brian Kelly prior to the start of this season, and he said no. I think he wanted to be the all-time leader in wins at Notre Dame, which he did this year. And then I think at age 60, then maybe he was open to the prospects of going someplace else. I think the NFL was always sort of there, whether he wanted it or NFL teams were interested. But LSU did reach out to start this season, from what I'm told, and Brian said no.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand Seattle here, David, because I watch Russ, and Russ is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Pete Carroll's maybe a Hall of Fame head coach. I don't know. But I watch them, and I don't know who they are, what they are. They were 12-4 last year. I don't know who they are this year. And if you're Russell Wilson and you're looking around going, what am I doing? Like, my legacy is at stake here, and we're not going forward, we're going backwards. So what is wrong with the Seahawks?
It's a hard watch. So what they did, Pete Carroll has always wanted to run the football, play good defense. All right. So, you can start on the defensive side, and you can say that they've gotten away from their personality. Not to keep bringing up Willie McGinnis, but he's a defensive genius, in my opinion, played for one of the best defensive coaches of all time, New England Patriots. And when he watches the Seattle Seahawks, he gets visibly sick because he knows what they used to be. He knows that they used to play a certain way. And they've gotten away from their identity. They don't just play single high cover 3 with the kind of matching coverages underneath. They just try to do a whole bunch of stuff. They blow coverages. It's not the same. So then you go on the offensive side of the ball. And they've always been a team that runs the ball at least 50% of the time. They've led the league in run percentage pretty much since Russell Wilson and all those guys have been. You think about Marshawn Lynch. They were pounding the football, and Russ was involved in that from the shotgun. And they were kind of at the forefront, honestly, even before teams were really doing a lot of zone runs and involving the quarterback in that. They were doing that with Russ. And for some reason, they decided that they looked around the league and they saw this offensive scheme that's happening, with the Rams and with the 49ers and now with the Packers. And it's like that Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan wide zone play action pass. And they're like, if we can, and in theory, this makes sense. If we can do that, we're going to run the ball anyway. Let's run the outside zone. Let's pound the rock. Let's play action passes, buy Russ some time back there, that the time that he's always kind of created for himself. And we'll buy him some time to make some big shots down the field. And in theory, it sounded good. And I think you can even hear, like, when you talk to Russ or you hear him in the interviews now, like, he's excited about what Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator from the Rams, is able to kind of put on paper. The problem is it doesn't translate because you have a quarterback, and the Rams are going through this too. With Matt Stafford, you have a quarterback that is one of the better just drop back pass quarterbacks in the league, that is able to see the field and kind of delegate and kind of really dictate what he's going to do from the pocket. And when you turn your back to the defense, it's no longer on Russ. It's on your play calling, and it's on the scheme to kind of carry that load. And you saw the Rams kind of get away from it. They're doing more drop back pass, and you could argue that it's hurting them a little bit. They've lost a little bit of that physical element. The Seahawks are no different. They're just not as talented. So they're trying to do this outside zone run stretch. They're not really sold on it. You can even see the offensive line's not even sold on it because they're not really doing it. They're not really pushing the pile, and they'll crack a couple runs, then they'll just scrap it. They'll go right to the drop back pass game. And the other thing, when you run that offensive system, you tend to have better zone run blocking guys. Even like Terrell Davis used to tell me, dude, if we had to drop back pass, even when Owe was there, based on the offensive line that we had, we were going to get beat. We were going to have a hard time. But if we could keep that run going, we could play action off of it, we'd have success. Same thing with the Seahawks. The problem is Shane Waldron is a young offensive coordinator. Russell Wilson is a very vocal, experienced quarterback, and rightfully so. He's going to say what he wants to do. And he's always going to default to let me just do my thing from the pocket. The problem is they have an identity crisis. So they don't know who they are on the offensive side. That's why it's hard to watch. That's why it's difficult, because they don't even know really what they want to do. And their best plays are still with Russ just kind of making things happen. But the problem is that's not an offensive scheme you can hang your hat on, and they're kind of just trying to figure it out right now, and that's why it looks so bad.
David, great to talk to you as always. We appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining us.
You got it, buddy. Thanks.
That's David Carr. He works for the NFL Network. And Thursday night, it'll be the Cowboys Saints on Fox, NFL Network, and Amazon Prime Video.